Hola.
And our dog Olive. In our last episode, we talked about breaking generational chains, ending cycles that have held families back for decades. But today we want to lean into the next step because breaking the chain is just the beginning. The real question is, once the chain is broken, how do you build a life that actually thrives? How do you move from survival mode into living with joy, peace, and legacy?
Again, got a great question. Now, before we move forward, I just want to say we're so excited for the feedback, and so many people have reached out and told us that they're listening to the podcast. So thank you again for listening. Thank you for reaching out to us or calling us, those that know us personally. It's really an honor and privilege to have you listen. And the last episode was amazing. Yeah. Not because we're saying it, but because people are telling us that it impacted them tremendously, breaking the chains, the generational chains. So thank you all sincerely for listening. And I hope this episode blesses you all also. Okay, so back on track. I think that's where so many people get stuck. And people try to fight hard to overcome something, Jenna, like an addiction or maybe a destructive pattern. Let's call it even a mindset, a mindset that is passed down from, let's say, a family member, a mom, dad, a sister, somebody that maybe mentored them. And when that breakthrough comes, it's amazing. But then the person may not be sure how to live beyond that. So here's what I'm saying. You can have a breakthrough and then get stuck because you get used to living a certain way. And now this breakthrough happens and you're no longer stuck where you were stuck before. And you're like, okay, so I'm so used to living on survival mode. Like, what do I do now? Because can I just say it? It just feels foreign.
Yeah.
It's really foreign to live free.
We were even in a meeting earlier today, and they were talking about how people are used to living in chaos. And sometimes we go to seek that out.
Yes. It could be living in chaos. It could be living as a victim. And the victim gets attention. And so every time you present a problem, it's like, oh, at least I'm getting attention this way. Survival mode. It's just, there's so many patterns, so many different things that people get hung up on. They get stuck on.
Yeah. So what do you think the difference is between surviving and thriving? Because I think a lot of people don't even realize that they're still in survival mode.
Okay. So simply put, survival is about making it through the day. You know what I'm talking about? That's what survival is. You're reacting, you're trying to manage things. Let's call it what it is, controlling things. You're trying not to drown. Yeah, it's like you're treading right above water. Your nose is right above it, but a little wave or something comes, schedule gets messed up. There's an emergency.
You're like snapping at people.
Absolutely.
Just anything, right?
Yeah. So thriving is completely, on the other hand, it's intentional. No one thinks of it that way, but thriving is intentional. It's about living, and I love this. It's living out of abundance. And what I mean by that is good mental health. You're emotionally healthy, spiritually. You're not only you're healthy, but you're thriving. You're growing. Okay. I love the scripture, John 10:10. Jesus' words. He says that he came to give us life and life to the full. So that's what I call thriving. But if you're only in survival mode, or all you know is survival, then you don't know how to receive abundance. You don't know how to receive or live in the thriving that we're talking about. And that's challenging.
Yeah.
So
would you say a good barometer, I guess, would be to check the relationships around you and see, like, how are my relationships around me?
I would say it starts with the relationship you have with yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the thoughts that you have. Is how do you speak to yourself? That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't even have to worry about the relationships out there. It's when you wake up first thing in the morning, do you wake up with here we go? Or man, I got to do this again. And I speak to so many people through coaching, and I'd say that 80, almost 90% are unhappy. They're not fulfilled, right? We've talked that in different episodes in the podcast. But imagine waking up to going to somewhere just to make money. That's not thriving.
Right.
That's
not
surviving.
living with purpose.
Correct. That's just surviving. That's just making ends meet or just going to make a paycheck.
Yeah.
All right. So I think the first step, again, going back to hopefully if you're listening, there's a theme through all of this. The podcast, it's that you have to renew your identity, because when you're in survival mode, your whole identity becomes wrapped up in the struggle. You hear me on that?
Yeah.
Like, I'm the one who hustles. I'm the one who fights. I'm the one who just gets by.
Yeah,
and
but
that's
sometimes
victimhood.
it's like it can be like a badge of honor, right? Like, oh, I'm the hustler. Like
Sure.
what's that saying? Like the hustle, like the hustle
Grinding.
mentality.
Oh, the grinding.
Yeah.
I'm grinding. Okay. So when God sets you free, he also gives you a new name, but he also gives you a new purpose.
Amen.
So thriving begins when you stop seeing yourself as the victim of yesterday, and you can start walking as, let's call it this, as someone that's building something for tomorrow, the builder of tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. So I know this from firsthand, because I've lived this. I've had broken cycles in my family. And what I mean by the broken cycles is that there's been patterns that have been set for me, that I was like, you know what, these aren't patterns that I want my kids to be in. I want them to grow up differently. Right? I want them to grow up differently. So, but I want to turn this on its head. I want to turn this around to you, Jenna. You ready for this? I know that you have, broken some cycles in your own family, and those cycles didn't stop you, and it didn't stop there. You've built, because I get what I call a front row seat to this life, because I get to call you my wife. And you've built a new kind of home for our kids. And I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed. And I just want to let people know. And I just want to scream it from the rooftops. So do us all a favor. Well, do our listeners a favor. I want you to share about that.
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to share how you've built this new life in spite of your past, in spite of, cycles, broken cycles in your own family. What are you doing here in our home?
Yeah. So growing up, I saw patterns that I knew weren't healthy. My parents were functioning addicts, which I didn't know when I was younger. I kind of realized that as I got older, probably until my teen years. My dad was gone a lot, and he had anger outbursts. So sometimes I got really good at learning how to read people, because I really had to learn how to read my dad when he got home, because we never knew if he was going to be in a good mood or a bad mood.
Yeah.
And so learning to walk on eggshells. And that was normal to me, though, at the time. And those things left wounds, and those were things that I carried into my marriage, especially walking on eggshells, right? And so what I've shared with you, too, was I was always afraid to get into a fight with you, because when I was younger, my parents would fight, right? And then my dad would leave. And so I brought that into our marriage as well. It was like, I never wanted to fight with you because I had this fear that you would leave, which you never did. You never showed me that that's what you would do.
I don't like to run.
But it was just like this pattern that I saw growing up. And so, but I never spoke it out loud. Like, I never said to you, like, don't leave. It was just this subconscious fear, right? And when God helped me break those patterns, it was huge. But I realized that if I didn't intentionally replace them with something better, the cycle could come back. And so thriving for me looked like choosing presence over absence and choosing blessing over cursing. There was this one time also when my parents would fight. My parents would fight all the time in front of us. And again, I was what we call codependent, especially as a kid. Like, you don't want your parents to fight. And so I went downstairs to tell my parents to stop fighting. And my mom called me the B word.
Oh, wow.
And
so you were trying to keep the peace in between your parents.
Of course, right?
And a child shouldn't be put in that position at all.
Right.
Because you love both your parents and you don't want to see them fight. You don't want to see them angry at each other.
Right.
And that made me, how did that make you feel?
Them fighting, because
Yeah.
I was a kid. Sorry, our dog is very needy right now. For her to call me a name like that was just so shocking. I was so hurt. And, we also had this pattern where, like I said, my dad would leave. And sometimes he would take us with him and we'd go stay at a hotel.
Oh.
And it was like a vacation. And it was just like, we'd go on this vacation, then we'd come home and everything was fine.
So things had to cool down.
Right.
Dad would say, okay, let's go have fun. Let's escape all this.
Yeah.
So that's a very unhealthy pattern to be like, okay, explosion at home.
Right.
And then, I get to go have fun with my dad for 2, 3, 4 days and then come back when things cool down.
And then we wouldn't talk about it.
Oh,
and that was the huge thing, right? And so now we are very communicative with our kids. Like, it's so funny because now our kids are like getting awards at school for being communicative. Like,
communicators.
They're great communicators,
Yeah.
which they also get in trouble for talking in class. But
so would you say that our goal, okay, as parents, is to communicate everything?
No.
Okay.
So there's things obviously that like we don't communicate. Like, it's not they're too young to know things. However,
their emotions, their feelings.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And teaching them conflict, right? So like they get into like, and I think we've talked about this before, but like when they get into like arguments with their friends and like coaching them through that and what that looks like. And like, hey, I know you guys got into an argument and like they just left without saying anything, but like we need to call them outside and we need to have a conversation about what happened, how everyone's feeling, and like how we're going to move forward with this. Yeah. We're not just going to sweep it.
We're not going to run away.
Yeah.
And just act like it didn't happen.
No, we're not going to do that.
So we're teaching them conflict resolution.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I didn't learn that.
Right.
And I think it's super important, things like that.
Hey, can I just say something? It's so impressive for them to lean into that because we're making it okay.
Yeah.
Like, this is what healthy looks like. A lot of people think that conflict, having conflict is avoidance. It's running away, and it's okay to do that. And it's not. These are people that you hang around with, people that you go to work with all the time. I'm talking about like in general. But we're teaching our kids that conflict is part of life. And there's a healthy way to deal with conflict, and it's better to deal with it. We were taught this, and we teach others this: have short accounts with God and short accounts with people. It's biblical. It's biblical, to confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. James 5:16. And the conflict resolution also is in Matthew 18, is how to deal with conflict within the church. But how cool is it that we're teaching them how to deal with conflict, obviously in the church, but also with their friends that are not in the church. So we're literally teaching them how to be like Jesus outside of the church.
Right.
In other words, taking the word of God outside so that people that are foreign to it and don't know it can experience it. And they'll look at it and go, well, that's different. That's weird. Even if these kids are experiencing at home conflict in a different way, our kids are going, oh no, let me share with you how to deal with this.
Yeah.
And we've gotten good responses from their parents as well. Some of our friends' kids, I've noticed, are like, oh, okay, they want to deal with this. And this is a little weird and it's awkward for them.
Right.
But it's cool to see our kids resolve conflict.
Right.
And then they're back at it. We should all remain kids. because then they're back out in the backyard. We have a little creek in the backyard, and they're out there, getting crawdads and all that cool stuff. Little frogs after they resolve their conflict.
Yeah,
Cool.
and just creating a home where our kids know that they're loved, secure, and covered in prayer. And something that my parents never did for me was, like, my mom, after she called me that, she never came to me and apologized. And that's something that we try to do for our kids. Like, if we mess up, which we do because we're not perfect, we make sure to go to our kids and apologize.
That's for forgiveness.
And I don't think that a lot of parents do that, because we're like, well, we're the parent and
I'm right, or if I'm wrong, I'm still right.
Yeah, but it's important to be humble and come to your kids and say, hey, I messed up. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done this. And I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? And that speaks volumes.
So talk to me more about that, Jenna. What does that admitting that you're wrong do to our children's hearts?
Oh my gosh. Man, it just makes them feel safe, right? And it makes them feel like, wow, if my mom can come to me and admit that she was wrong.
I could do the same.
Yeah.
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 It's safety. They could be vulnerable. They could be open. And guess what? They can be honest.
And then when they feel like they can come to me too and say, hey, Mom, when you said that hurt my feelings, right? Instead of just holding it in. And then they grow up with these hurts and then they end up in therapy, right? I mean, they might end up in therapy anyways, but maybe
in recovery.
not as long.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's, something that I never saw modeled for me, but I knew that I wanted to pass down.
That's called legacy.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful legacy that we're passing on to our kids now. I love that. Well, that's powerful. All right. Now, let's get practical, because I'm sure, our listeners want to know. For them, let me say this. For the person who's listening right now who feels like they're free but not flourishing yet, okay, what can they do to begin moving from surviving to thriving, Jenna? What can they do?
Yeah, I think that we can kind of sum it up. I mean, it's a long journey for sure, but we could kind of sum it up into 3 things that you and I have both worked on together. The first one is just renew your rhythms. Take a look at that and look at what you're doing. Thriving requires healthy daily habits like prayer, right?
Praying with them.
Yeah. But just praying in your own life, asking God to remove your shortcomings, asking Him to search your heart.
Okay, now you're going deep. So you're telling me that I have to ask God, hey, God, what's messed up with me? Can you help get rid of this?
Because we're never perfect.
Character defects, right?
Yeah, there's always something for us to work on, for sure. And maybe even asking your spouse, like, if you don't know what it is, maybe ask someone around you. Ask your spouse.
Jenna, do you know what's wrong with me?
Oh, you better ask God first.
Oh, Lord Almighty.
But, having community around you and, stewardship, what does that look like? What is your rhythm in that?
When you say stewardship, for a listener who's going, I don't know that word. Like, clearly, like, what do you define that as? What is stewardship?
Stewardship can be your time. Like, what are you doing with your time? Are you just spending your time watching TV? Or are you spending,
So another word could be management. Like, how are you managing your time? Are you managing prayer?
Are you,
rest?
it may not even, I think our listeners don't even have time to watch TV, but are you just filling it up with things instead of having quiet time with the Lord?
Okay, rest. Rest is another big part.
Right.
It's good.
Like, I saw this, I don't know, something on social media where this girl was like going to sit down with God, and she's like, hold on real quick, I'll be right back. And then she goes and does something, and he's like, okay, I'll wait. And then she comes back and she's like, oh, hold on, one more thing. And he was like, all right, I'll be waiting here.
Wow.
And then she's like, oh, okay, one more thing. And he's like, I'm still waiting. And I was like,
oh, wow. So what a picture.
Yeah, totally. I was like, oh, that hits. So the second one is pursue healing and not just coping. And this one is huge. Don't just stop at the breakthrough. Keep investing in counseling, discipleship, coaching. This morning, we had a conversation with a couple, and, I grew up with parents who struggled with addiction, and my parents were functioning addicts. And so, like I said, we met with this couple who was going through something similar, and she was struggling with a mom that's an addict.
Right.
And the thing that I could tell her, the best thing that I ever did was seek help for myself.
Wow.
I walked into a program embarrassed of a problem that wasn't even mine to begin with. And I went to get my dad help. And what I had always done was I gave him the ultimatum. It's either the drugs or it's me. But not knowing that I was never going to win that battle.
Wow.
Right? I didn't understand addiction. And so my heart was always broken.
So when you say an ultimatum, you were basically telling your dad, hey, choose your addiction or choose me.
Yeah.
And so what did he always choose?
He always chose addiction.
Wow.
Because
that's hard. Yeah.
that's what addiction is. It has such a grip on their life, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that. I just thought it was so much easier than that, right?
So I'm going to say it this way, in not knowing, in your ignorance of addiction, you wanted to help your dad make a decision to stop doing drugs. And you felt like by saying our relationship's going to end if you don't stop doing drugs.
Right.
And he was like, okay, like I'll stop. But then his addiction would relapse.
Right.
He would relapse into his addiction because the addiction was so much stronger.
Absolutely.
Not that he didn't love you, because I know I had a front row seat to see how much your dad loved you.
Right.
So I know it wasn't lack of love.
Right.
It's just that addiction's a different animal. It's a beast, right?
Yeah. So through that program that I went in, I learned that I was the one that needed the help, right?
That was God.
And I learned to just love my dad where he was.
Ooh, say that again. Come on.
But also to set boundaries and have those hard conversations with him. And I couldn't have done that without the support of other people around me and learning more about what my current patterns were and what I needed to surrender over to the care of Christ.
So tell me a little bit more about the boundaries.
Yeah.
Because I know what they are, but our listeners don't. What were some of those boundaries that you set with your dad?
Yeah. So, my dad's addiction was always the family secret. It was one of those things that we never talked about. We never confronted. And once I got into the program, then I was able to start bringing it up more to him. And by this time we had our 2 kids and they were babies. And so some of the boundaries that I had with him was like, hey, Dad, I love you. And I'm like, I still went to lunch with him and he still came and brought the kids McDonald's and stuff.
Yeah.
That was like his favorite thing.
Shout out kids meals.
Yeah. But, my boundaries were like, hey, Dad, but you can't be alone with the kids. You can't drive my kids around, things like that. Those were our boundaries. And the hard conversations were like, Dad, are you high right now? And as a daughter saying that to your dad, that's
Asking
hard.
him, yeah.
That is so hard. Like, I don't want to have to act like your parent, but also I need to know that.
You need safety and you need security for our kids.
Yeah. And so...
Because you don't want him saying, hey, let me pick up the kids. And he was high and he wants to drive them around or go to the park with them. And you're like, you can't do that.
Right.
That's good. That's good. Wow. That's growth. And that's, again, going back to you breaking the chains and patterns of the past.
Yeah.
And you setting a new standard and saying these boundaries are for us to stay in relationship, Dad.
Right.
And to bring healing and wholeness to our kids and not pass that on to our kids.
Right.
That's huge.
I love the sermon that you taught about, and you might need to help me with this, but taking care of, so you built this wall, these bricks, right? And so on the bottom was the hurts, and the hurts were the foundation. And then you have the hangups in the middle, and then you have the habits at the top. And so if we just try to replace our habits at the top and we don't take care of the hurts, the foundation at the bottom, then we're just going to continue replacing the habits or the coping mechanisms over and over again.
So the way, yes. So simplifying that is this.
Yeah.
We all get hurt. Other people sin, and that causes us pain. That causes us trauma. And sometimes it's self-inflicted, and sometimes it's not. So that turns into a thought pattern, a belief system. And that belief system then equals the way I act or lack of action. And what we try to do, we go to counseling, we go to therapy, we go to recovery. Our goal is we think that if we attack the addiction, that means a pattern. We attack the symptom, that we just replace that with something else, that the first layer, the first brick, which is the actual hurt, the pain, the trauma that someone caused us, is going to go away. And what we've seen is people replace the very top brick with something new. But they don't understand or realize that they're taking their broken self to the next thing. You could start a Bible study, you can go church, you could do all these positive things. But again, that is just the very top brick. You're not healing the actual trauma. For example, in your story, your mom calling you a word that shouldn't have called you, the fights, the arguments that your parents had, that made you believe something. That belief system is what led you to take the actions that you needed to take, which was self-protection, preservation, but also how can I be the mediator of my parents? So you, in other words, become the referee, you become the fixer. That's called codependency. And if that's the way that you can get attention from your parents and the love from them, then guess what you're going to do? More of that. So it becomes this weird thing. And again, you can do positive things, but unless you attack that first layer, which is the hurt, and surrender that to God. And a lot of it, Jenna, has to do with forgiveness. You mentioned that already. Is how can I teach my kids that when someone hurts them, even if it's us, that they can directly confront that person in love, not being a jerk, and say, hey, you know what, mom or dad, or hey, friend, you hurt me by what you said, and this happened. And they don't have to take responsibility for how that person reacts or responds, but at least they get to share their emotions, their feelings, express them so that they don't that creates a hang up. And that hang up equals whatever the coping skill is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
So here's the point, everybody. You're listening to this. You can read the Bible, you can go to church, you can give and be generous, but your broken self when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, or if you're 60 years old and you've had multiple divorces, that continues to come along with you. You need to surrender that hurt over to Jesus Christ, and you need to take an inventory of yourself and say, how did these things affect me? And I need to release them to God, forgive these people, ask God, here it is, to at least become willing to forgive these people. I get it. Some of you out there, you've dealt with abuse, verbal, emotional, physical, financial, and sexual abuse. And it's not your fault. And you gotta say, hey, I'm not guilty for this. And then there's the other side. There's the other people there's another person probably listening to this saying, I just can't forgive myself because I hurt somebody. But if you're a believer in Jesus Christ and you've accepted him as not just your savior, but as your Lord, God has forgiven you through his son, Jesus. You are forgiven. And you need to accept that forgiveness, because until you do, you're going to be stuck in that prison.
Yeah.
and continue to wreak havoc in your life and the life of those around you.
And here's a beautiful thing, how it came full circle. If it wasn't, and I love this, if it wasn't for my dad's addiction and me walking into that program to
Come
get
on.
him help,
Yeah,
I'm not sure we would be here today.
right. I agree.
And since
I
then,
agree.
since we've continued, since then, we have just continued to say yes to God because of what he healed us from and what we didn't want to see our kids have to go through, right?
Yeah.
And so that brings me on to number 4. I think we said there was 3, but there's 4. We're going to add on
You got one more. Okay,
yeah.
I love it.
The 4th one is focus on building legacy.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. So ask yourself, what do I want to leave behind for my kids, my community, my spiritual family?
That's good.
Right? Because thriving means thinking generationally, not just personally.
Wow. Yes. Again, number 1, our relationship, with God is obviously the most important one because he's the one that helps us do these 4 things that you've talked about. So it starts there, realizing that we're his beloved, we're his children, that he loves us, and praying. Again, we said this in the last podcast, but really praying not just for our children, but for our children's 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 children, all the way down, so that they can remember us and say, yeah, like my great 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 grandma was a prayer warrior, and she broke the generational chains that held us captive. So good. I love that.
Because I think, once you've broken the chain, you have the chance to plant something new that grows for generations. And it's not just about your freedom, it's about the future that you're building.
Yeah, it's thriving. Thriving is legacy. That's what we're trying to say here. Going back to that, it's when your life can now become a blessing to others. So not only are you receiving the blessings, but God is now using you because now you become a conduit to bless others. And God is not just a rescue for yourself, but God can use you to help point others to the rescuer, which is Jesus Christ himself. So good. What a great episode. Well, as we close today, I want you, our listener, to remember again that survival is not your final destination. God didn't bring you, through the storm just so that you can stand still at the shoreline. I mean, he's calling you to thrive. He's calling you to step into a new season where you build, where you create, and you leave a legacy that, again, like my wife said, outlives you. So the breakthrough is just the doorway. But here's a good question, or I should say a statement, not a question. Here's what I think about. I go, what you do beyond it, again, once you've had the breakthrough, that's the life that you were meant for. So with that said, next week, we're going to talk about, Jenna, something that often keeps us from thriving. And you know what that is? Control. Control. So
Oh my God.
why do we cling to it so tightly? Okay, well, don't answer that yet. Okay, we're going to do that next episode. And why is control, Jenna? Why is it an illusion? All right, so we're excited because we're going into episode 25. Okay, everybody? And episode 25 is going to challenge you to let go in order to truly live.
That's hard.
All right, y'all. So you know how we do it. If today's conversation encouraged you, we want to ask you to please take a moment and just share it with a friend who's probably in survival mode right now. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's next.
And reach out if you
Need some help.
related to it,
Yeah.
if you have questions, if you need help.
Yeah, we're here for you guys. All right, until then, keep moving forward, not just surviving, but thriving. All right, we'll talk to you then. Don't miss it.